Yo, what up, and welcome to my December reads. As always, I will leave timestamps below if you're interested in a particular book. So here we go. December was an okay month for me. Not the best, but not the worst. I managed to read these 4 books. And let's get started. The first book I read in December was The Speaker by Traci, Chee, and it's book 2 in Sea of Ink and Gold series. Now, I read the previous book the previous month, and I was quite interested in continuing with this series, but I can't really tell if I was satisfied or not. Why? First of all, I'm not really that invested in the main plot line, so this is the epic plot line that will go through the first, second and the third book. I was more interested in the side plot lines. Now, second problem I had with this book was that already in the first book it had so many characters, and in the second book, this one, we got even more characters. And I had to say, I didn't care for most of them. There were, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 8 main characters, and I would say that the around 20 characters that we have a bit more knowledge of. And I didn't really like any of the characters. The author always said that, oh, she's or he is the best, is the legendary, is the most advanced, is the best magician, is the best soldier, has the legacy of this and that. And I felt like if 20 people have that much legacy, are so special, then in the end, none of them are that special. So this was the problem I had with it. I really just didn't care about like 90% of the characters that I had here. I'm not sure what it is with this book. I understand that this has a chance of really being amazing, of really drawing you in. Everything is there, but I just don't care. The cover is nice. I feel like I have to pick up the third book just to see the end, because I've already invested so much time in reading the first 2 books. But I do have to go and read through other people's reviews, like, what is it that I'm missing? What's the problem here? Why can't I get into it when it seems to be like perfect? The second book that I read is this. It's called Because We Are Bad by Lily Bailey, and I picked it up because it caught my eye. This book is about living with OCD, and it is actually an autobiography. And when I first started reading it, I was not so sure about it, because with every kind of mental illness, when people write about it, you're not sure if it's just something that they picked up and just read a few articles on, or if their experience reflects on the whole disease in like a correct or comprehensible way. It seems like the author is a big advocate for OCD in Britain, and the general consensus about this book was very favorable. So that meant that I could really enjoy it, and I didn't have to keep thinking like, am I being tricked in a way? Some of the things that Lily worried about were things that maybe seemed silly, but some of the things that she worried about seemed really serious. Learned about a lot of things, like, for example, magical thoughts, that when you think that you do something, then it results in something else happening. So if I just do this, then this will happen, and if I just do this, then this won't happen. And this is something that we all experience, but people with OCD really get stuck on that. This book talks about Lily, who starts to get these kinds of magical thoughts from very young age, who has these different kinds of rituals she has to perform before going to bed or during the school hours, and it gets progressively worse until she is admitted to a hospital. It's a very posh hospital, so it was a very interesting experience to read about that. Obviously, she's very privileged, but it wasn't written in a way that you would think like it was a fascinating read. It was a very fast read. I really couldn't put it down. There were a lot of repetitions due to Lily writing how her thought process went, and this repetition also helped with the pace of this book. It's a wonderful book. I really enjoyed it. I wish I could read more books like this. I went to check out Lily's Instagram and see about her struggles that she still has from day to day. I haven't really seen this kind of look into this disorder before. All I've seen are like movies or TV shows where people just count things or just wash their hands a lot, but this really offered a deeper look into the disorder. The third book I read was The Summer of Jordi Pérez and the Best Burgers in Los Angeles by Amy Spalding. And this book is about two girls who get an internship. About two girls who get an internship in a clothing boutique, and they kind of first feel like they have to compete, but then they start to fall in love, and then it follows how they handle it all. Now, things I loved about this book, like you see from the cover, it's a very happy book. It's a rom-com. It's just these two girls. They don't have big problems. They are not unhappy in their lives. They have very supporting families. There is none of the angst of them trying to figure out if they are gay or not. No, not a problem. They are very comfortable in their sexuality. And the twist that comes, because there always has to be a twist to make the book a bit more interesting. The twist was not what I expected, which surprised me in a good way. I thought it would be very predictable, but it wasn't. And the twist then gets resolved in a really sensible, nice way. So it is a very feel-good book. It's a very nice romance. I really enjoyed it. Sometimes you just want to pick up a book like this and not really worry about all the depressing things that can also happen in gay relationships. When I first saw this in a bookstore, I doubted if I should pick it up, like, do I need another one of those? But I did, and it's by Elsie Rosen, and it's called Jack of Hearts and Other Parts. Jack of Hearts and Other Parts. And this book talks about Jack, who starts a column on sex advice because his friend asks him to. His friend runs a blog of which this small section of sex advice is part of. Now, this tackled a lot of problems that there are in this boy romance genre that we have, that is currently thriving, I would say. So there were three big problems that we saw here. First of all, it was that Jack will have trouble with a stalker because he's putting all his experiences and thoughts out there on the internet, and he starts getting these really obsessive letters. How Jack handles this is done in a very understandable way. Sometimes when stuff like this happens in books, you're like, why are you doing this? You should do this or this instead. But here I really didn't feel like that. I didn't feel like yelling at him how he handled it. It was not easy, and there were a lot of problems, but I felt like it was dealt in a very realistic way. So it was not done in a way that would make a good book. It was done in a way that felt very realistic. The second problem that we have here is about how straight women fetishize male and male romance. And with what we see with all these books that are coming out, like Dante and Aristotle, like Love, Simon, and with the shows like RuPaul's Drag Race getting popular, we see that straight women feel like they know about gay culture and that they have some type of say in it. And this book tackles this topic in a wonderful way. And Jack is very honest about it. Jack really lets it rip, let's say it like that. And it really points out the problems that are in this kind of behavior that we see online whenever a book like this is published. Behavior we see on Tumblr, Instagram, on fanfiction sites and stuff like that. I really loved it, and it was such a courageous thing, I feel, to do, because basically I imagine that a lot of the people who pick this book up are straight women, straight girls, young women, and it was attacking basically the reader, or well, maybe not attacking, but really putting a mirror to look themselves in. And the third problem, because there was a third problem that was tackled, was how we expect gay guys to act in public. Should they be straight acting? Should they quell these really flamboyant, I don't know, gestures or way of dressing or wearing makeup? Is it their responsibility to really not play up that like stereotype of a gay guy? But what if they want to be that person? Jack is very much that person who wants to be flamboyant, who talks in a certain way, who wears makeup and glitter to school, and he's very unapologetic about it. And he clashes with like people on the internet, and his ex, who is very much into like acting really straight. And this problem really is something that needs to be addressed as well. The fourth thing that this book actually does, it's very sexual. And one of the things that this genre usually does, this young adult genre, is very fade to black. Like two guys get together and what they do is like mention that like very vaguely, and yes, very much fade to black. This this gets really graphical, and in not a way that is very like read this porn, but it's very much informational. It is saying things like it is, and this is another thing that usually young adult books don't do. I'm really amazed by this author that they had this kind of courage to talk about all these 4 topics. If you are a fan of the genre, then don't skip it. Definitely A+ read, a recommendation for you all. I only had 4 books and I already have like 20 minutes I've recorded. This was my December reads. I hope you enjoyed it. I really loved a lot of these books, and I hope that January will be just as good for me as was the December. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any kind of questions or want to discuss these books with me, leave a comment or DM me, whatever. And yes, leave a like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and bye!